There's a moment, just before night gives way to dawn, when the world holds its breath, when the line between light and darkness blurs into something almost magical. Can you feel it? That quiet hum in the air, like the earth itself is whispering secrets meant only for those brave enough to listen. Tonight, we step into one of those moments with Anduin, a traveler whose journey begins where the mist curls over the great river, where the water's surface ripples with something deeper than mere current. Where are you listening from right now, and what hour has drawn you into this tale? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to imagine you there, wrapped in the same hush that surrounds Anduin as he stands at the river's edge. The great river has always been more than water. It's a boundary, a living thing, pulsing with the weight of centuries. Legends say its depths hold answers, truths about the balance between light and shadow, about the choices that define us. But legends rarely warn of the cost. Anduin knows this. He feels it in the way the mist clings to his skin, in the way the air thrums with a power that's neither gentle nor cruel, but simply waiting. It calls to him, this river, with a voice that's equal parts promise and peril. What would you do if you stood where he stands? Would you step forward or turn back? This isn't just a story about a river. It's about the spaces between, the moments when we're neither here nor there, when the path ahead is shrouded in possibility. Anduin's journey is one of courage, yes, but also of surrender. To uncover the river's truth, he must confront the parts of himself that waver in the mist, the parts that fear the allure of the unknown. And as we follow him, we'll discover something timeless, that the borders we cross aren't just outside us, they're within. So settle in, dear listener. The night is long, and the river's song is just beginning. The water swirls around Anduin's ankles like fingers grasping, pulling him toward the river's heart. With each step, the silt shifts beneath his boots, unstable as the choice before him. The current murmurs in a language just beyond understanding, its rhythm steady, insistent, a siren song woven into the rush of the waves. But then, cutting through the river's whisper, comes another sound, a cry, thin and desperate, fraying at the edges like a thread about to snap. It doesn't belong to the water, or the wind, or any creature of the deep. It's human, or close enough. Anduin turns, his breath catching. The forest looms behind him, its shadows suddenly alive with the weight of that plea. Every instinct hums with warning. This is where paths diverge, where a single step could unravel the quiet destiny the river had spun for him. Yet how could he ignore a voice in need? The water tugs once more, a final test of resolve, but his feet are already moving toward the trees, away from the current's embrace. What he doesn't know, what none of us ever truly know in such moments, is how one act of kindness can become a compass, redirecting an entire life. The river would have taught him about balance, about the slow, patient dance between light and dark. But the forest demands something else entirely. It asks for action, for the kind of courage that flares bright and sudden, like a match struck in the gloom. Anduin's boots leave the shallows behind, water dripping from the leather as he steps onto solid ground. The river's song fades, but the cry grows clearer, sharper, a hook in his chest pulling him forward. Does he regret turning away? Not yet, but the river is patient. It knows what lies ahead, and it will be waiting for him when he returns. The trees seem to lean closer as Anduin crouches beside the fallen elf, their branches weaving a canopy that dims what little light remains. Her fingers tremble against his wrist, cold as winter stone, yet her grip is fierce. A final act of urgency. The blood staining her tunic isn't just red, it's threaded with something darker, like ink spilled in water, spreading in unnatural tendrils. The shadow walks, she whispers, each word a ragged breath. It drinks the river's light, grows stronger where the water's slow. Her eyes flicker toward the forest's edge, where the underbrush parts as if something had passed through in haste, leaving behind snapped twigs and a scent like burnt metal. Anduin's pulse quickens. This isn't the work of wolves or wandering beasts. The elf's warning coils around his thoughts. The darkness isn't lurking in tales anymore. It's here. He tears a strip from his cloak, pressing it to her wound, but the fabric darkens too quickly. Her lips part once more, not with pain, but a name, a place. The hollow ford, she murmurs. Where the river bends, it waits there. Then her hand falls and the forest exhales around them, leaves shivering in a wind that carries no relief. Anduin stares at her still face, at the way the shadows seem to gather thicker where her blood meets the earth. He's seen death before, but never like this. Never with such quiet malice. The choice settles over him like a weight. Behind him, the river's murmur is faint now, its wisdom distant. Ahead, the forest stretches into gloom, its paths tangled with thorns, and the echo of that burnt, metallic air. To flee would be sensible. The wounded elf's warning was clear. The shadow hunts, but as he rises, his boots sinking slightly into the damp soil, Anduin realizes the truth. There's no returning to the river's lessons now, not after what he's seen. The hollow ford may be a trap, or a trial, but it's also a thread, pulled taut by a hand he cannot yet see. He takes a step forward, then another, the elf's body at his back. The forest accepts him without sound, its secrets clinging to his clothes like cobwebs. Somewhere ahead, the river bends. Somewhere ahead, the shadow walks, and Anduin, he walks toward it, because some choices aren't about courage or fear. They're about meeting the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The leaves rustle again, but this time, it almost sounds like approval. The scorch marks twist along the riverbank like blackened veins, their edges too precise to be the work of fire. Anduin traces one with his boot, the soil crumbling unnaturally under his weight, brittle as old bones, yet damp with the river's touch. The air here is wrong. Thick, each breath feels like swallowing smoke, though no flames lick the trees. Even the water has changed, its usual shimmer dulled to a sluggish gray, as if the very current has grown weary. He kneels, dipping his fingers into the shallows, and recoils. Not cold, not warm, a void, as though the river's soul has been siphoned away. A rustle stirs the reeds downstream. Slow, deliberate, Anduin's head snaps up, his staff humming faintly in his grip, not with magic, but with the tension thrumming through his hands. There, where the mist curls denser over the water, a figure stands. Or perhaps it only seems to stand. Its edges blur, as if woven from the fog itself, shifting between solid and smoke. No face, no features, just presence. Watching, every instinct screams to demand answers, to stride forward and challenge whatever this is. But the elf's warning coils in his mind. It drinks the river's light, Is this the shadow she feared, or something else? Another player in a game he doesn't yet understand. The moment stretches, taut as a bowstring. Anduin's fingers flex around his staff. Decide, but hesitation is a luxury the forest does not afford. The figure tilts its head, a motion more felt than seen, and then dissolves, not into mist, but into nothing, as if it were never there at all. The absence is worse. Now the riverbank is too quiet, too still, and the scorch marks seem to pulse faintly under his gaze. Anduin swallows hard. Whoever, whatever that was, it left behind no footprints, no trace. Only the certainty, settling heavy in his chest, that he is not the hunter here. He is the hunted. The hollow ford looms ahead, its name suddenly too literal, too apt. But turning back would mean walking blind into a trap already set. So he moves forward, staff raised. The river's poisoned whispers his only guide. One step. Then another. The trees lean closer, their branches knitting together like barred gates. Anduin doesn't look back. Whatever follows him, let it come. The ford will have its answers, or its teeth. The village doesn't announce itself. It unravels, piece by piece, as Anduin pushes through the last tangle of undergrowth. First, the scent, damp wood and something sweetly rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. Then the silence, not the hush of an empty place, but the thick, watchful quiet of a throat holding back a scream. The houses sag under vines that shouldn't glow, their leaves flickering with a sickly green light, as if fed by something deeper than moonlight. Anduin's fingers brush one, and it recoils. Alive, hungry, the journal lies in the dust of what might have been a baker's shop, its pages warped by rain, but still legible. The ink bleeds in places, the handwriting growing jagged as the entries progress. It sings to us in our sleep. The last entry reads, not with words, but with holes, gaps where our thoughts used to be. Anduin flips back, finding sketches of the river, first as it was, then as it became, blackened, its surface choked with shapes that might be branches or might be fingers. The final page holds a child's drawing, clumsy but clear. A serpent, vast as the river itself, its body woven through the water like a seam of ink, and those eyes. Twin stars, staring up from the paper with a knowing no child could muster. A chill crawls up Anduin's spine. This isn't just corruption, it's invitation. The villagers didn't flee, they followed. They walked into that water, lulled by a voice that hollowed them out first in dreams, then in truth. He turns the journal over, half expecting to find teeth marks in the leather. Instead, his thumb catches on a single word, scratched into the cover as if by accident. Come. Outside, the wind stirs the glowing vines, their light pulsing in unison. A rhythm, a heartbeat. The serpent in the drawing didn't just watch the villagers. It welcomed them, and now, as Anduin steps into the abandoned square, the ruins seem to lean closer, whispering the same word the river must have murmured night after night. Not a threat, a promise. Come, the ford is near, the shadow walks, and the water is patient. It always has been. The gold in the water isn't light, it's hunger. Anduin feels it the moment his shadow touches the river's edge, the way the current stills, as if the whole world has paused to watch. Night folds around him like a shroud, the stars smudged out by a mist that smells of old parchment and damp stone. Then the figure, not smoke this time, not shadow, but something shaped like a man, if men were made of river foam and forgotten names. Its voice isn't sound, it's the sensation of a page turning, of ink soaking into paper. You seek answers, it murmurs, though its mouth never moves, but the river only gives to those who give first. Anduin's fingers twitch. He's bargained before with merchants, with fate, but never with something that wears the water like a second skin. What do you take? He asks, and the figure smiles with the whole of its face, a crack splitting its features like ice giving way. A memory, it replies. One you love, one that anchors you. The river laps at his boots, its golden swirls forming shapes. A boy's laughter, a hearth's warmth, the weight of a father's hand on his shoulder. The images sting. These aren't just moments. They are the quiet joys that have kept him whole. His hand hovers. To touch the water is to surrender, to let the current pick through his past like a thief in the dark. But the hollow ford's scorched earth waits, and the serpent in the child's drawing stares up from his thoughts with those star pool eyes. Anduin exhales. His fingers break the surface. The memory it takes is small. A winter morning, his breath frosting the air as he balanced on a fallen log, arms outstretched, certain he could walk forever. The joy of it, bright, uncomplicated, lingers for a heartbeat before the river drinks it down. Then the visions come, not as images, but as sensations. The taste of iron, the scream of splitting wood, a tide of shadows clashing against a wall of silver fire. This is no distant prophecy. It's imminent. The battle isn't coming. It's already begun, in places where the world wears thin. The figure leans closer, its breath the sigh of reeds in the wind. You see now, it whispers, light cannot win without sacrifice. Not yours, not yet, but soon. Anduin staggers back, the river's gold clinging to his skin like a second shadow. The memory is gone, the knowledge is a weight, and the ford is calling, not with a whisper, with a roar. The cloak shifts first, not with the wind, but with a tension that makes the fabric seem alive. Then the hood falls back, revealing a face carved by years of vigilance. Her eyes the color of storm-washed slate. She doesn't offer a name. Rangers rarely do. But the way her fingers never stray far from the dagger at her belt speaks volumes. You shouldn't be here, she says, voice low as river gravel. Every step you take gives it another thread to weave into its web. Anduin stiffens, the way she says it, not with fear, but with the weary hatred of someone who's fought the same battle too many times. Her gaze flicks to his staff, then to the golden stain, still shimmering on his fingertips from the river's bargain. A muscle jumps in her jaw. You've already fed it, she mutters, doubt, curiosity, even that stubbornness of yours, all fuel. The accusation lands like a stone. She's right, though he won't admit it yet. The river did taste something in him, but this stranger doesn't know the weight of the memory he surrendered, or the visions that followed. She steps closer, her boots silent on the moss. It's not just the water anymore, she says, and for the first time, a crack forms in her armor, a tremor in her words. It's in the roots, the soil, the air, and now her eyes bore into his. It's in you. The truth of it slithers down his spine. He feels it, the way his pulse stutters when the mist thickens, the way the shadows seem to lean toward him, drawn like moths to a flame. A choice hangs between them, sharp as her unsheathed blade. She doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust her, but the desperation in her grip, as she suddenly seizes his wrist, is real. I can't hold it back alone, she admits, the words dragged from her like a confession. And neither can you. The forest holds its breath. Somewhere downstream, the river murmurs, a sound almost like laughter. Anduin looks at her hand on his arm, at the scars mapping her skin. Each one a story, a loss. She's fought this thing longer than he's known it existed. But trusting her means stepping onto a path where every shadow might be a snare, where even an ally could be a weapon turned against him. His free hand closes around the memory the river stole, the ghost of that winter morning still aching in his chest. Waning strength or shared risk, the ranger's grip tightens, her nails biting into his flesh, not a threat, but a plea, the kind that leaves marks. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of wet stone and something older, something that doesn't belong in this world. Anduin exhales. Show me, he says, not I trust you, not we're allies, just enough to walk the same path for now. The ranger's mouth quirks, humorless. She knows the difference, but she releases him, turning toward the trees where the darkness gathers thickest. Try to keep up, she tosses over her shoulder. And then she's moving, swift as a blade through water, leaving Anduin to follow, or be left to the river's waiting hunger. The storm doesn't just rage, it hunts. Rain slashes sideways, not falling but driving, as if the sky itself is trying to peel the flesh from their bones. The bridge ahead is a skeleton of splintered wood and shattered stone, its ribs jutting into the air like the broken teeth of some long-dead beast. The ranger grabs Anduin's arm, her fingers iron. This is as far as we go, she shouts over the wind, her voice fraying at the edges. But Anduin's already pulling free, already stepping toward the wreckage. Because there, beneath the moss and the muck, the stones glow, not with the river's sickly gold, but with something older, a pulse of silver blue light, faint as a dying star. Runes, the ranger's dagger is at his throat before he can kneel. You don't know what you're waking, she snarls. Anduin doesn't flinch. He's seen the way her eyes dart to the water, the way her shoulders tense at every ripple. She fears this place. He needs it. The runes hum under his fingertips, their magic sluggish with disuse but still alive. They whisper in a language he doesn't know, yet somehow understands. Repair, reclaim, remember. The river's energy is a live wire in his veins as he channels it into the stones. It fights him, twisting like a snake in his grip, but he doesn't let go. The bridge shudders, wood knits itself back together, stone grinds against stone, and for a heartbeat, the storm stills not in peace, but in shock. Then the water howls. The river rears up beneath the newly mended bridge, its surface boiling with shapes that might be hands or fins or worse. The ranger yanks him backward as the first wave crashes over the path, her curse lost in the thunder. It knows, she spits. You've just told it exactly where we are. The bridge holds, but the water beneath it is no longer water. It's a mirror, reflecting not the sky, but a depthless black, a void where something watches. Anduin's breath catches. The runes weren't just a tool, they were a test, and whatever waits below the surface, it's very, very pleased he passed. The ranger's already moving, her boots pounding against the resurrected wood. Anduin follows, but not before he sees it, the way the runes flicker once more before fading, their light seeping into the river like an offering or a warning. The storm swallows the bridge behind them, but the feeling lingers. They haven't just crossed water. They've crossed a line, and the dark, it's following. The island doesn't emerge from the mist. It swallows them. One moment, the bridge groans under their feet. The next, the planks dissolve into fog, leaving them stranded on soil that breathes. Every step sinks slightly, as if the ground is savoring their weight. The air hums with voices, not from any direction, but from inside, as though the island has peeled back their skulls and poured the sound directly into their minds. The ranger's lips move, a command, a warning, but her words vanish into the chorus of echoes. Anduin's breath hitches. The first shadow isn't a shape, it's a feeling. The cold press of guilt, the weight of a choice he'd buried years ago. Then it solidifies, a boy's face, wide-eyed and accusing, flickering between the trees. You could have saved me. The memory is a knife, twisted too deep to pull free. Another shadow forms, this one taller, broader, the set of its shoulders achingly familiar. His father, not as he was in life, but as he looked in those final moments, weary, resigned, gripping Anduin's wrist with fingers that trembled. You were supposed to be stronger. The ranger grabs his arm, her nails biting through his sleeve. They're not real, she hisses. They're just reflections, silence them. But how do you silence what's already carved into your bones? The shadows multiply, each one a splinter from his past. A failed promise, a reckless word, a moment of cowardice dressed up as caution. They don't attack. They don't need to. They simply are, and their presence is a weight that bows his shoulders. Then, softer than the rest, a new voice threads through the noise. A lullaby. The melody is off, the notes stretched thin by time, but it's unmistakable. His mother's voice, not the scolding tone she used when he tracked mud through the house, nor the sharp edge she reserved for his father's excuses. This is the voice she used at bedtime, when she thought he was already asleep. Turn back, my heart. This path isn't yours. The plea unravels him. His staff slips from his grip, thudding against the hungry earth. The shadows surge, their forms bleeding together into a tide of reaching hands, of mouths repeating every regret he's ever whispered in the dark. The ranger shouts, but her voice is distant, smothered by the echoes. Anduin's knees buckle. He doesn't fight it. Why would he? The island isn't showing him horrors. It's showing him the truth. But then a spark. Not light, not hope, but something simpler, anger. The kind that flares when you're cornered, when the weight of every mistake threatens to crush you, and the only choice left is to rage against it. His fingers claw into the dirt, and the island shudders. The shadows recoil, not in fear, but in recognition. They know this feeling. It's the one that birthed them. Anduin rises. The echoes swell, his mother's voice now tangled with the others, but he doesn't flinch. I remember, he says, the words raw. I remember all of it. The admission hangs in the air, a challenge. The island holds its breath. For the first time, the mist parts, not to free them, but to reveal what lies ahead. A grove of bone-white trees, their branches tangled into arches. A path, not an escape, an invitation. The ranger exhales, her dagger glinting. Well, she mutters. That's new. The air thickens like syrup as the path narrows. Trees twisting inward to form an archway of gnarled branches. A gate that wasn't there a moment ago. Between them stands the guardian, not a figure of flesh, but of shifting light and river mist, its form towering, its eyes twin pools reflecting not Anduin's face, but flickering scenes, a burning village, a child's outstretched hand, the moment his own legs froze instead of running toward the flames. The ranger stiffens beside him, her dagger half drawn, but the guardian's voice booms without sound, vibrating in their bones. She may not follow. The ground vanishes beneath Anduin's feet. Not into darkness, but into memory. The scent of charred timber floods his nostrils, the heat of that long-ago night searing his skin anew. There's the cottage where old Mara taught him to whittle, now collapsing in a shower of sparks. There's the well where the children dared each other to leap, its bucket reduced to splinters. And there, crumpled in the square, the boy he'd sworn to shield. His name rises in Anduin's throat, but the past won't let him speak it. This is the wound the guardian has peeled open, not just failure, but the helplessness that festered after. The truth he's never voiced, that part of him still believes if he'd been faster, stronger, better, the embers wouldn't have swallowed so many voices. The guardian looms over the ruined village, its form now mirroring Anduin's own, but taller, crueler. Why do you walk this path? It demands, the question a blade against his ribs. To undo this, the scene rewinds, the boy's body lifting from the ashes as if pulled by invisible strings, or to claim the strength to ensure it never happens again. The offer hangs, poison sweet. Power here would be so simple. Just reach out, take, let the river's currents scour him clean of doubt. Anduin's hands fist at his sides. The boy's ghostly fingers brush his wrist, cold as the day they buried him. A plea or an accusation, it doesn't matter. The answer isn't in the past. It's in the weight of the ranger's trust behind him. In the villagers' names he still whispers to the stars on sleepless nights. I walk it to protect, he says, the words scraping raw from his throat. Not what's lost, what remains. The guardian goes very still. Then, a sound like ice cracking. The village shatters not into embers, but into countless shards of light, each one catching on Anduin's skin like dew. The guardian's massive head bows, its form dissolving until all that's left is a single, shimmering fragment hovering above his palm. Not a weapon, not a reward. A reminder, the river's light thrums against his skin, warmer than he expected. Alive, when the trees release him, the ranger is exactly where he left her, though her stance has shifted. She's no longer braced for a fight, but studying him with something like recognition. Took you long enough, she mutters, but there's no bite in it. Ahead, the path unspools, the mist thinning just enough to reveal what the guardian was truly guarding. Not an obstacle, but a threshold. The air here smells different. Sharper, the river's presence is quieter, but deeper, as if they've stepped not away from it, but into its heart. Anduin closes his fingers around the light. It doesn't burn, it doesn't fade. It simply is a small, stubborn defiance against the dark. The ranger doesn't ask what he saw. Some trials are meant to be carried alone. But when she turns toward the waiting trees, she does so with her dagger sheathed. For now, that's trust enough. The spring doesn't bubble. It gags, its waters thick with streaks of black that coil like serpents just beneath the surface. What was once clear now pulses with a sluggish, sickly rhythm, the tendrils spreading outward in slow, deliberate spirals. The ranger's breath catches. she says, pointing to where the darkness is densest. A knot of shadows writhing around the spring's heart. Cut that, and the river might run clean again. Her hand drifts to her dagger, but she doesn't draw it. Not yet, because the cost isn't just in the blade's swing, it's in what comes after. Anduin's fingers tighten around the shard of light. It hums against his palm, warm and alive, a tiny sun against the spring's creeping chill. Kneeling, he lets his reflection ripple in the corrupted water. Not just his face, but the ghosts the island showed him, all those failures and fears swirling just beneath his skin. The spring watches back, not with eyes, but with pressure, a presence that presses against his temples like thumbs digging into clay. Then the visions come. Not of fire or ruin, but of absence. A world where the river's magic has been scoured away. Trees stand skeletal, their roots starved of the old songs that once guided their growth. The wind carries no whispers, only dust. Even the stones seem lesser, their edges blunt, their veins of silver gone dull. This isn't destruction, it's erasure. The river's balance wasn't just about light and dark. It was the tension between them, the way each needed the other to mean anything at all. The shard dips toward the water. The tendrils recoil, hissing where the light touches them, but the spring fights back. It shows him another vision, himself, years from now, kneeling by a different shore. His hands are empty, his eyes are hollow, and the thing that rises from the water to greet him isn't shadow or light, but something worse in difference. The price of purity, it seems, is a world too sterile to sustain even regret. The ranger shifts behind him. Do it or don't, she mutters, but there's no impatience in her voice. Only dread. She's seen this choice before, maybe even made it. Anduin exhales. The shard glows brighter, not in triumph, but in understanding. Light doesn't win by destroying the dark. It wins by holding it, by remembering that even the deepest shadow is just another shape the light can take. His fingers open, the shard sinks. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the spring screams. The tendrils thrash, lashing around his wrist like chains. But the light is already spreading, threading through the water in veins of gold. It hurts, not like fire, but like a bone snapping back into place. Painful, necessary. The ranger staggers back, her dagger finally drawn, but there's nothing to strike. The darkness isn't fleeing, it's changing. Where the light touches, the Inkai tendrils don't vanish, they transform. The black softens to gray, then to a shimmering, depthless blue, like the first hint of dawn through storm clouds. The spring's surface steadies, no longer choked, but balanced. The water isn't pure, it isn't corrupt, it's whole. The ranger's dagger slips from her fingers. That, she says slowly, wasn't the plan. Anduin laughs, though his hands are shaking. Some choices aren't about winning or losing. They're about learning what you were truly fighting for. The spring murmurs something wordless against his skin. Not thanks, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. The river's magic won't fade today, but neither, he realizes, will its shadows. A breeze stirs the trees, carrying the scent of wet stone and something older, something that might, if he listens closely, sound almost like relief. The river's voice rises in a slow, liquid murmur, wrapping around Anduin like a second skin. Not the rasp of corruption now, but the deep, resonant tone of something ancient, something that remembers the shape of the world before names existed. You could stay, it whispers, the words forming not in his ears, but in the hollows of his bones. Not as a keeper, but as the current itself. The offer unfurls in his mind, an end to the struggle, a union where his breath would become the river's rhythm, his pulse its tides. Power, yes, but also surrender, to become the bridge between light and dark forever. The ranger's dagger flashes silver at the edge of his vision. Don't, she snaps, her voice frayed with something sharper than fear. It's not a gift, it's a gilded chain. You think you'd keep your thoughts, yourself. I've seen what's left of those who say yes, hollow things, echoing with voices that aren't theirs. Her blade trembles, not from weakness, but from the effort of holding it steady. She's fought this moment before, maybe even envied it. Anduin exhales, and the spring's surface trembles with his breath. The choice isn't really between strength and weakness. It's between two kinds of hunger, the river's vast and patient, and his own, the gnawing need to matter, to leave a mark that won't wash away. The guardian's shard still glows in his palm, a tiny, stubborn echo of the light he restored. It doesn't speak, but it reminds of the boy in the ashes, of the father whose last grip on his wrist was both plea and pardon. Of the ranger who could have slit his throat a dozen times, but chose instead to stand here, her blade between him and the abyss. The water laps at his knees, eager. The river's promise is sweet as a lullaby. No more doubt, no more grief, just the certainty of purpose, of becoming something greater than a man. Anduin closes his eyes. The darkness behind his lids isn't empty. It's alive with faces, with hands that once clutched his and let go. His fingers tighten around the shard, not to wield it, to feel its edges bite into his skin, sharp as the truth. Some bonds are meant to be temporary. When he opens his eyes, the spring is still waiting. No, he says, soft as a stone sinking. The word doesn't echo, it splits. The river's voice fractures into 1,000 whispers, some furious, some mournful, all receding like a tide pulling back from the shore. The darkness coiled in the water convulses, thrashing as if scalded, then dissolves not into light, but into something quieter, something that might, in time, learn balance. The ranger's dagger lowers. She doesn't smile. Rangers rarely do, but her shoulders lose their battle-ready tension, just for a moment. Idiot, she mutters, but the word lands like a hand on his shoulder. The spring's surface clears, reflecting not the sky, not their faces, but a path winding away from the water, into the trees, into the world that still needs men more than it needs legends. Anduin pockets the shard. It's warm, alive, not a weapon, not a shield, but a reminder. Some choices aren't about winning, they're about remaining. The river murmurs one last time, a sound almost like understanding, and then falls silent. The air smells of rain and turned earth, of beginnings. The light doesn't just cleanse, it consumes. Anduin's hands plunge into the spring, fingers splayed like roots, seeking water, and the shard's glow erupts into a brilliance that sears his vision white. It isn't pain, not exactly. It's the sensation of every nerve alight, every vein flooded with a fire that doesn't burn but unmakes. The shadows recoil, hissing as the light licks them away, their tendrils dissolving like ink in a stirred cup. For a heartbeat, the spring is pure, not empty, but whole, its waters shimmering with a clarity that hasn't existed for centuries. Then the cost hits. His knees buckle, His breath rasps like a saw through wet wood, and the world tilts sideways. The last thing he sees before darkness swallows him is the ranger's face, her usual mask of indifference, shattered into something raw. Surprise, fear, or the dawning realization that he's just done the impossible. When he wakes, the river's song is different, clearer, not the hollow whisper of before, but a melody that hums through the stones, through the air, through the very marrow of his bones. The ranger's grip on his collar is the only thing keeping him upright. "You're heavier than you look," she grunts, but there's no venom in it, just exhaustion. And something else, a flicker of respect, hard-earned and reluctantly given. The spring bubbles beside them, its surface mirror bright, reflecting a sky suddenly streaked with stars. It's beautiful, it's wrong, because the light isn't settling. It's pulsing, restless, as if the shadows were never the enemy, just the counterweight to something far hungrier. The ranger feels it too. Her dagger is out again, though what she plans to stab is anyone's guess. "It's too clean," she mutters, like a wound scrubbed raw. Anduin's throat tightens. She's right. The balance isn't restored, it's broken. Without the dark to temper it, the light doesn't heal, it scours. The trees around them shudder, their leaves curling inward, as if shielding themselves from a sun too fierce. Even the river's song has changed pitch, the melody sharpening into a note that sets his teeth on edge. Victory, it seems, is just another kind of failure. A crack splits the air, not sound but sensation, like the world itself flinching. The spring's surface trembles, and for a heartbeat, Anduin sees it, a fissure in the light, a thread of darkness stitching itself back into existence. Not the choking tendrils from before, but something quieter, something necessary. The ranger hisses through her teeth. "Well," she says, wiping her blade on her thigh with a practiced twist, "guess we're not done after all." The shard in Anduin's pocket hums, warm against his skin, not in triumph, in warning. The river's song rises, bright and terrible, and somewhere beneath it, the shadows begin to whisper back. The bridge holds firm beneath their boots, its timbers no longer groaning, but humming softly, as if the river itself has woven its song into the wood. Dawn spills across the water in ribbons of gold and silver, the mist lifting like a curtain to reveal a forest transformed, not by magic, but by something quieter, subtler. The trees stand taller, their leaves trembling with a lightness that wasn't there before, and the air carries the crisp, clean scent of dew on new grass. Anduin breathes it in, feeling the river's presence inside him, not as a storm or a whisper, but as a steady pulse, a rhythm finally in tune with his own. The ranger stops at the edge of the trees, her silhouette sharp against the rising sun. She doesn't offer farewells rangers rarely do, but her fingers brush the hilt of her dagger, a gesture that might be gratitude or warning. "Borders don't stay mended on their own," she says, her voice rough as river stone. "Light and dark, they're like two sides of a blade. Keep one too sharp, and the whole thing shatters." Her eyes flick to his pocket, where the shard still glows faintly through the fabric. "You'll do." Anduin smiles, though it's a tired thing. The weight of the night lingers in his bones, in the raw ache of his palms where the light had seared through him. But there's a new weight too, one he can't name yet, not responsibility, not purpose, but something quieter, something that feels like the first step of a path he's only just glimpsed. The ranger melts into the trees without a sound, her absence leaving a space that isn't empty, but full of unspoken things. The bridge ends where the road begins, its stones warm under the morning sun. Anduin hesitates, not from doubt, but from the strange certainty that turning back now would be impossible. The river's song curls around him, not calling him home, but urging him forward. There are other springs, other shadows, other borders waiting to be walked. He takes the first step, then the next, the shard a quiet heartbeat against his ribs. Behind him, the water murmurs. Ahead, the world unfolds, vast and uncharted. Anduin doesn't look back. Dawn has always been for beginnings. The dream begins where the river ends, at the foot of a spire so tall it pierces the sky, its surface slick with something darker than rain. The serpent from the child's drawing coils around it, not as ink on paper, but as living shadow, its scales shifting between obsidian and a sickly, shimmering gold. It doesn't speak. It presses emotions flooding Anduin's chest like water, forced into a drowning man's lungs. Dread, hunger, a yawning emptiness that gnaws at the edges of the world. The spire cracks, not with sound, but with sensation. A fault line splitting deep beneath his feet. Something watches from the fissure, something even the serpent fears. He wakes with the taste of burnt honey on his tongue, his hands clawing at the bedroll, as if to dig himself free of the vision. Dawn is a pale smear on the horizon, but the dream clings like a second skin, its weight more real than the dew soaking his sleeves. The shard in his pocket pulses once, hot as a fresh brand, then falls silent. A warning, an echo. The ranger is gone, her campfire ashes cold, but her words linger. Borders don't stay mended on their own. The river glints innocently in the morning light, its surface smooth as polished glass. No shadows, no whispers, just the quiet ripple of water over stone. It's a lie, of course. The peace he bargained for, bled for, is as fragile as the stillness between heartbeats. The serpent's message wasn't a prophecy, it was a countdown. Whatever slithered through his dreams isn't coming. It's already here, moving just beyond sight, patient as the tide. Anduin kneels, plunging his hands into the river, half expecting the water to recoil. It doesn't. It curls around his fingers, warm and familiar, as if last night's battle never happened. But the shard's heat lingers in his palm, a stubborn ember refusing to die. The spire in his dream wasn't a place. It was a threshold, and the thing on the other side, it isn't waiting for an invitation. It's learning how to knock. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of wet earth and something sharper ozone, or maybe the metallic tang of a storm yet to come. Anduin exhales, watching his breath fog the air. Reprieves are for stories. The real work begins when the fighting's done. He stands, rolling the stiffness from his shoulders. Somewhere downstream, the river bends. Somewhere beyond that, the spire waits, and the dream was never just his. It was a ripple in a deeper current, one that's been flowing long before he stepped into its path. The shard hums again, low and insistent. This time, he listens. The villagers arrive at dawn, their footsteps stirring the river's mist into uneasy spirals. They carry no torches, no weapons, only the weight of sleepless nights etched beneath their eyes. The oldest among them, a woman with hands knotted like tree roots, steps forward. Her voice cracks like dry parchment, as she speaks of fields that wither overnight, of children who wake screaming of serpents in their dreams, their pupils swallowed by pools of black. "It's in the soil now," she whispers, pressing a cloth bundle into Anduin's hands. Inside, a fistful of wheat sprouts, their stems twisted into unnatural spirals, their tips oozing a sap that smells of burnt sugar and rust. Anduin's fingers tighten around the shard in his pocket. It thrums, not with warmth this time, but with a vibration that races up his arm like a plucked bowstring. He's seen this before, not here, not exactly, but in the way the river's corruption had pulsed through the spring, in the way the shadows had learned to wear familiar faces. The darkness isn't just spreading, it's adapting. His pack is light, a whetstone, a waterskin, the journal with its child's drawing of the serpent. He adds the twisted wheat carefully, the stems squirming faintly against the parchment, as if still searching for sunlight. The villagers don't ask him to stay. They don't beg for salvation. They simply stand there, their silence louder than any plea, their eyes reflecting the same truth. They've already begun to say goodbye to the world they knew. The river's light flares in his chest, a spark caught between ribs. It's sharper now, less a comfort than a compass needle, swinging wildly toward some unseen north. He touches the scar on his palm, where the shard had seared him, where the guardian's trial had left its mark. That pain had been clean, purposeful. What waits ahead will be neither. The path unfurls before him, not into the forest's embrace this time, but across the blighted fields where the earth itself seems to breathe in ragged, shuddering gasps. Anduin shoulders his pack, the weight of it all, the wheat, the journal, the unspoken trust of those who have lost too much to still hope settling against his spine like a second shadow. He isn't walking toward the darkness anymore. He's walking into it, because someone must stand between the terror and those too weary to lift their own blades. Behind him, the river murmurs, not a farewell, a reminder. The light in his chest isn't just a guide, it's a beacon, and beacons, by their very nature, draw more than just the lost. The air tastes of damp wool and fear, thick enough to choke on. Anduin stands at the village square's edge, the cobbles slick underfoot, the faces before him drawn tight as bowstrings. Their eyes reflect the same nightmare, the spire's jagged silhouette, wet clawing at the horizon, the way the ground trembles at odd hours as if something beneath it is stirring. A child clutches a doll with its stitching torn loose, the stuffing blackened like it's been dipped in tar. No one speaks. The silence is worse than screams. The shard burns in Anduin's palm, its light pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Not a weapon, never a weapon. The river's voice murmurs in his bones, softer now but insistent. Remember what you are. Remember what they are. He exhales, letting the shard's glow spill through his fingers, pooling at his feet like liquid starlight. The villagers flinch not from the light, but from the way it makes their shadows writhe, twisting into shapes too long and sharp to be human. Look, he says, and his voice doesn't boom. It doesn't need to. Look at what you've already survived. The light spreads, not in a wave but in threads, weaving through the crowd like a loom stitching a tapestry. Where it touches, the air shimmers with memories not his, but theirs. The baker kneading dough before sunrise, her hands steady despite the ache in her joints. The woodcarver teaching his grandson to whittle, their laughter bouncing off the workshop walls. The young mother singing off-key lullabies to a babe who wouldn't sleep. Ordinary moments, unbreakable ones. A woman gasps, pressing her hands to her chest as if she can cradle the vision. "That's my," she starts, but the words crumble. The light doesn't erase the fear, it answers it. The spire's shadow recoils, its edges fraying like smoke in the wind, and the ground's trembling stills, not from retreat, but from surprise. The darkness expected cowering, it expected screams. It didn't account for this. A dozen hands reaching out, not to beg for salvation, but to take back what was stolen. Anduin's knees buckle, the shard's fire searing up his arm like a brand. This isn't the river's strength he's channeling. It's theirs. The baker's resilience, the woodcarver's patience, the mother's stubborn love. All those tiny, unyielding lights that no shadow could ever fully smother. The villagers don't rally with swords or spells. They step forward, shoulders squared, and the darkness flinches. The spire doesn't crumble. It doesn't vanish in a blaze of glory. But for the first time, it shrinks just a fraction, just enough to prove a point. Light isn't the absence of dark. It's the refusal to let dark be all there is. Anduin sags against the well, his breath ragged, the shard's glow dimming to an ember. The battle isn't won, but the people remember how to fight. A small hand tugs his sleeve. The child with the ruined doll holds it out, her fingers smudged with soot. "Can you fix it?" she asks. Not "will you, can you?" Anduin's throat tightens. He takes the doll, his thumb brushing the charred fabric. "No," he admits, "but you can." He presses the shard into her palm, folding her tiny fingers around it. The light flares once, gentle as a heartbeat, and when she uncurls her fist, the doll's stitches are whole again, not perfect, but mended. The villagers murmur, their shadows stretching long in the dawn light, no longer twisted, but human. Anduin watches them, his chest aching with something too vast to name. The spire still looms, the serpent still waits, but here, in this square, with soot on their hands and light in their bones, they've already done the impossible. They've remembered who they are. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of baking bread from someone's oven. Life, stubborn and sweet, pushing through the cracks. Anduin closes his eyes. The river's voice is silent now. It doesn't need to speak. The river glides past Anduin's boots, its surface polished smooth as glass, reflecting the heavens like a scattered tapestry of silver and shadow. He no longer startles at the way the water hums against the stones. An old song, half remembered, as familiar now as his own breath. The villagers' voices carry downstream, laughter braided with the clatter of mended looms and the scent of fresh bread. Life, in all its messy, stubborn glory, has reclaimed its rhythm, yet the quiet beneath it all remains not the hollow silence of before, but the hush of something watchful. Waiting, he trails his fingers through the current, and the river curls around his wrist, not with the desperate grasp of before, but with the ease of an old friend. The shard is gone, given to the child with the mended doll, its light now woven into the fabric of this place. Anduin smiles, though his shoulders still bear the weight of nights spent listening to the dark's whispers. Guardian isn't a title, it's a practice, a daily choosing to stand where the currents fray, to mend what others might not even see is broken. A rustle stirs the reeds. The ranger steps from the tree line, her dagger sheathed, her cloak damp with dew. She doesn't speak, Doesn't need to. Her presence says enough. The work isn't done. It never will be. Somewhere beyond these banks, the spire's shadow still looms. Somewhere, the serpent dreams. But here, now, the balance holds. Anduin rises, his shadow stretching long across the water. No longer a man caught between light and dark, but one who's learned to walk the line where both meet. The river murmurs something that might be gratitude, or a warning, or simply the oldest truth of all, that borders are never fixed. They ripple, they bend. They demand to be crossed again and again by those brave enough to carry the weight of both sides. Anduin turns his face to the dawn, the first rays gilding the water's edge. Behind him, the village stirs. Ahead, the path winds on. The reeds sigh as he passes, their whispers weaving into the wind. Not an ending, but a breath held between stories. Somewhere, a child tucks the mended doll beneath her pillow. Somewhere, a baker kneads dough with hands that no longer tremble. And the river flows, serene once more, its depths holding not just the reflection of the stars, but the quiet, unyielding promise that dawn will always come. Not because it must, because they choose it, again and again and again.